Not sure what is going on right now, but StreamYard is not letting me like move my keyboard. And it just got me locked up. But I'm going to try to remove this fucking FBI. What is going on? I've never had this problem before in my life. And now it's got me like, it won't let me scroll. It's very odd. And then it's just me sitting here sounding like a fucking idiot with an FBI tag on. So I got to figure out what the hell is going on here. But there I am. Welcome everybody. This is why the going live sucks sometimes. You just, once you click go live, you're locked into everything. FBI doesn't want me doing it. I have not ever, welcome back to Total Disclosure. My name's Ty. I'm the host of the show. A little aggravated by what just happened, but I want to skip all that. Make sure to like, share, subscribe. You know what it is. If you're listening on a podcast platform, leave a rating and a review, 5 stars. It always helps. If you can help monetarily, hit join, and you can get access to early podcasts, ad-free versions. Something I've never, ever talked about on camera is 9/11. I am from the East Coast in Boston, and you know that day, that was probably one of the first real memories that I ever had. Memories, as when I speak about memories, we got pulled out of school. I remember my mom looking very distraught. I grew up next to an Air Force base in Boston, so Hanscom Air Force Base. Jets were just scrambling over our area nonstop. We had to get under our desks. Our teachers made us get under our desks. It was very, very, very weird. Very, very weird. And on the morning of September 11th, 2001, the world changed forever. Almost a quarter century later, the shock kind of faded, but I don't think the questions have faded one bit. For years, we've been handed, an official narrative, coordinated terrorist attack, unforeseen and unstoppable. But when you begin to peel back the layers and sift through the evidence and listen to experts who were silenced or ignored, a much more complicated and far more unsettling picture starts to emerge. This new ongoing series it's hard for me. It's really, really hard. From Total Disclosure, we'll attempt to do a few things. Re-examine the events of 9/11 with an open eye, curiosity, and courage. I'll seek to investigate topics ranging from the intelligence failures or intelligence anomalies that allowed the attack to happen, claims of controlled demolition, exotic weaponry, or unknown technologies, including direct energy weapons via Dr. Judy Wood's theories. The political and geopolitical motives behind the disaster, eyewitness accounts that contradict the official narrative of the disaster, the missing rubble, unexplained heat signatures, and impossible physics, the strange dreams, visions, and premonitions before the attacks by the people in the surrounding area. And even the fringe connections some draw between 9/11, the UFO phenomena, and the paranormal. I'm not here to give you a predetermined conclusion. I'm not here to spoon feed you the answers. What I am here to do is to ask the questions others won't. Follow the evidence wherever it leads. With that being said, I'm joined today by someone I just met, 9/11 revisionist, or Norman. Thank you for being here.
Tyler, thank you for having me, man. It's really, really cool having a discussion. I've been following some of your content, and you've had some really, really interesting conversations in interesting guests with weird and wonderful things happening. So, yeah, it's really, really cool talking to you today.
Yeah, this is a topic I really don't get into often. I mean, I know it's probably, I know many of the representatives that are on the Secrets Task Force, and this is obviously one that's up there with JFK and the UFO topic in general. But I think I've been so groomed, if you will, to see this subject or this day as taboo, and to not want to talk about it for fear of whatever they might do, right? That whether it's copyright striking your channel, taking the video down, demonetizing you, deplatform, all these things together. The intelligence community has really got their finger on the pulse of these ideas, and it's scary. how did someone from South Africa, and so one of my first big questions about when I heard about you, because now I had been tapped to interview someone else today, technically, yesterday. And I had scrapped that interview after a mutual friend, who I don't know, I won't say it, but a mutual friend was like, dude, don't do that. Like this, whatever. Um, this is the people these are the people you should at least start talking to. How does a guy from South Africa get involved in 9/11? Or at least the theories of what happened?
Well, my foray into conspiracy started with most people. Look, on 9/11, I was 23 years old when it happened, so I was already corpus mentis a bit, getting into weird and wonderful stuff. And my first foray into conspiracy theory was the JFK, because that was one of the big things. And then in 2005, 2006, YouTube came online, so people could be uploading various things, and then you started just watching stuff like that. And I'm not a guy who's into bread and circuses, so the whole let's watch a football game on the weekend or things like that, I'm not interested in that. I would rather watch a 2-hour documentary on some sort of conspiracy theory than waste my time with a bunch of grown men running around on a pitch. And eventually I got into the 9/11 stuff because you had movies like September Clues, In Plain Sight, Loose Change. What was the other big one that came out? In New Pearl Harbor, and all these various documentaries coming out. And all these guys were saying, okay, there's something wrong with the official narrative, so here's our take on it. Eventually, I came across Richard Gage and his famous video where he's standing with his 2 cardboard cutouts talking about, no, but the building just fell way too fast with regards to, it fell faster than gravity in a way.
For the record,
he's
the guy who I was supposed to have. Richard Gage is the guy who I was supposed to have on.
Yeah.
So continue. I'm sorry.
And then I saw the thermite experiments where they were able to cut steel. And I thought, okay, fine. We've got architects and engineers and stuff. These guys are looking into it. They seem above board, and they should be able to do something about it. And I kind of forgot about it, because that was around about 2006, 2007 that these guys were making a lot of noise. By 2011, 2012, I again stumbled upon some 9/11 content, saw a presentation given in the Netherlands in 2012, the Breakthrough Energy Conference, and there was this lady who said, okay, fine, today I'm going to prove to you that the buildings turn to dust before they hit the ground. And I thought, okay, fine, this is batshit crazy. But at least I'm willing to listen to both sides of a story. So I listened to the conversation or the presentation that she made, and she was talking about a hell of a lot of anomalies and buildings that you don't normally hear about from the 9/11 truth movement. I basically call the 9/11 truth movement the cult that can't count past 3, because as soon as you look at the anomalies with buildings 3, 4, 5, 6, the Bankers Trust building, the Greek Orthodox Church, then in essence 9 buildings pretty much disappeared due to the events of that day. And that was basically it. I thought, okay, fine, this lady is bringing in information to the table, and if she hooks up with these architects and engineers, she's a scientist in metal and all of this, then obviously they'll be able to sort the stuff out and something should happen. Then life just went on. Nothing really happened in the 9/11 sphere, and with the 21st anniversary, I saw a video of university students being interviewed, asking what big anniversary is coming along. And they didn't know that it was the 21st anniversary of 9/11. They didn't really know what happened on 9/11. They didn't really know what the mainstream or the government narrative was or anything like this. And I thought, oh, hell. And that kind of like made something in me snap. I then went into debate forums on Facebook, seeing that I'm now middle-aged, or us old people end up still on Facebook. And I started debating some people, and I saw, okay, fine, these guys know a hell of a lot about either the thermite aspect or the nuke aspect, or the buried nukes, or what hell ever idea they had. And I then just decided, okay, fine, if I really want to wrap my head around this and I really want to get into conversations about 9/11, then I should revisit everything all the way back with the formation of Scholars for 9/11 Truth in 2005, because that was the first organized organization that was against the government narrative. Right. And work my way up through 23 years of information being put out on both sides. So I read virtually anything and everything that I could find, watched numerous documentaries, presentations, all of that. And that then in turn got me into writing on my Substack, and then also going into these Zoom meetings with the organizations that have a lot of clout in America. And I just saw that they couldn't answer the questions that I had pertaining to the evidence presented that they don't talk about. And that's my foray. That's where I'm now. And if you actually spend the time of really deep diving the 24 years of disinformation out there, you can really easily see that the whole narrative around 9/11 and then the truth movement that has been put into place comes into some sort of sci-fi spy type novel, because people were taken out, people were completely lambasted in media and all of that. So there's a lot of noise and a lot of orchestrated COINTELPRO operations going on to this day, and even the latest installment is Tucker Carlson's 5-part series. That's also absolute bunk.
Fantastic. Wait, bunk?
Yeah, there's a lot of disinformation in there.
Okay, so I want to let's start there, because that is actually what lit a fire under my ass to kind of like get back into trying to figure out what happened. Now, I will say Tucker does skate a very, like not I guess you're right. He doesn't really talk about too much of like the other side of it. And the other side of it is the fact that if 110 stories of building supposedly came down on itself, where was all the fucking rubble? Like, where's all the desks? Where's all the sinks, right? Where is all that shit? And it seems more like, when I watched the tapes back, and again, I'll get into a little bit about how I experienced that day when I got pulled out of school, there was no Twitter, like there was no independent voices. What you were given was the official narrative from Fox, from CNN, from what at the time, these very trusted sources, because they were the only fucking sources. And we didn't know, or I mean, some of us did, I guess, like that the CIA controls most of these outlets. They have journalists embedded in probably every major TV organization and journalistic outlet. So the CIA version of this story, can you tell us at least what your understanding of the officially accepted narrative of 9/11 is?
Well, the official narrative is 2 wee little planes slammed into 2 massive buildings, and a little bit of jet fuel spilled into the building and caused major fires to weaken the steel, and then it just collapsed in a gravity-driven collapse. And if you actually look at the if you look at the way the buildings were constructed, it's absolutely farcical. But the thing is, it was such a massive trauma-based event that people just outsourced their thinking to mainstream media and the government. And what happens in a traumatic event, and how does people's minds work, is I want to know what happened. So the first answer you given on the TV, and at that stage, people still pretty much believed in MSM and investigative journalism. They thought that, okay, fine, these guys will give us the answers, then I don't have to think about it. And that's how the narrative got stuck. And in those first weeks, it was just replayed for people, and they just heard collapse, 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 collapse. So it comes back to tell a lie, tell it big enough and repeat it enough, then it becomes the truth. And that's where a lot of people got stuck. And a
lot of the same tactics are used in the UFO world. So that's what I'm seeing. It's almost like they took the playbook from what they do with people in UFOs and mass or sightings or experiences, and it just expanded it to a large format, silence anyone who disagrees, deplatform them. And at the time, there was no Twitter, there was no outlet where you could voice unless you were going to make a movie like Loose Change, which is the first time I had ever seen any conspiracy film. And that you couldn't even get that movie. That movie was they pulled it off shelves of Blockbuster. They pulled it off shelves of video stores. Again, this is a very, very, this is at the time, it's a very analog world. We haven't quite yet got to that digital age. So when I got home from school every day, the same thing was on the TV. It was just videos of the planes hitting over and over and over again. Collapse. Maybe you got some videos of the street angles, people running from this cloud of dust that was about to overtake them. And then it does overtake them. And then they were all dusty after. Anyone knows what I'm talking about that was alive at the time. They just played this on a roll. And that, what we were told was so Islamic hijackers took over several planes from United 93 out of Logan, which is where I'm at. I think a few of them were out of Logan, if I'm not mistaken. So the hijackers got onto the planes. Now, people have to think TSA wasn't the way it is now. The way TSA is now is a direct result of what happened with 9/11. So the hijackers overtake. How many planes was it? 4 or 5?
Four planes that day. Flight 11 into the North Tower, Flight 175 into the South Tower, Flight 93 into Shanksville, and then Flight 77 for the
Pentagon. We'll get into that one too, because that. So the reason I want to go through this in a linear way, and you'll probably end up knowing why. So what they're telling us on the news is that Islamic terrorists that have either ties to Saudi Arabia or bin Laden directly, so that you can see the narrative start to emerge, right? Within hours, we know who the bad guys are, because we find their passports.
It actually wasn't within hours. There was a newscaster 45 seconds after the second plane hit the South Tower. He mentioned Osama bin Laden. And then that is what everybody ran with the whole day.
Right. Okay. So it was even quicker than I thought. Again,
45 seconds.
I was in third grade when this happened. I was in third grade. So again, my memory is a little foggy when it comes. I'm trying to piece together everything in my head. But I remember all of a sudden they had the passports. So nothing survives, but we just so happen to have the passports of the paper passports.
The passport was actually picked up before the buildings disintegrated.
And this is fucking crazy to me, because you're going to tell me that jet fuel was now when this is what, at least how I understand it as the official narrative. Plane hits at like the 105 level, maybe? No, maybe a little bit lower.
In the
90?
80s, in the 80s.
So anything above them, you're fucked at that point. I mean, you're just anything above, you're fucked. But the jet fuel was so hot that it melts the beams at that height, and then that's what causes the pancaking, right? Is that
and all the way down 80 floors to the bottom? Come on. It's ridiculous that anybody can actually believe that. And they actually have video with thermal cameras showing that there was what seemed to be hot spots at the impact sites and nowhere else. So again, that just proves that it wasn't too hot for the building to handle.
And so the structure itself, the World Trade Center, was it not constructed to withstand planes hitting towers? That had happened before. It had happened. I believe in
Empire State Building, 1950s or 40s somewhere.
Yeah, super foggy day, plane hits a building, nothing happens. I mean, the of course something happens, but the tower doesn't collapse on itself in what looks.
But also pieces of that bomber fell to the ground next to the building, and they picked it up in the streets. You didn't see that plane didn't just melt into the building like a hot knife through butter, and nothing fell to the ground.
Right. And you would expect the worst of it would have been maybe like an engine coming down and like smashing onto like 100 people. That would be terrible. But at that height, coming from that heavy, at that height, I mean, it's like that would have been terrible in itself. But the way the building comes down, it never struck me as weird because I was so young, right? But the building comes down. You couldn't have staged that better. From absolute, when you really look back at it and you really look at the collapse of the two towers, and of course there's so much other stuff that we have to get into, but when you look at that, you couldn't have happened. It could not have happened any cleaner in the way it fell. And then with everything looks dustified. There's obviously rubble at ground zero, but I remember they had fences that were 12 feet tall with that green stuff in between it. So you couldn't see into ground zero. I went to ground zero with my father. He owned a moving company, and we went there about a year later. And I'm not saying within a year, you couldn't see into what was happening, like what ground zero looked like. And if I'm not mistaken, I've tried to look back now, those fences went up pretty fucking quickly. They didn't want people to know what it looked like, what they were pulling out. So it was a big mystery. But
the site was actually locked down on September 13th. And no video, no camera, no civilians were allowed anywhere near ground zero. Correct. So that the guys could control the narrative going out. Because even at September 12th, when people were still allowed to go there, the main question, and it was on ABC, I think it was Peter Jennings or somebody, who basically mentioned, okay, the main question that everybody has is, why is there so little rubble? Because something that people need to realize, there's three differences when it comes to buildings. A building can collapse, a gravity collapse like we saw in Myanmar, where you can see the levels of the building as it's done a pancake collapse. So you can see the various floors. But then you've got a controlled demolition using kinetic or thermal mechanisms or whatever. And when they blow a building to bits, you end up with a rubble pile on average that is 12.5% of the original building height. So if you calculate 12.5% of 110, that gives you 13.75 floors. And if you look at the after pictures on September 12 and even on September 11, when the helicopters were flying flying over ground zero, the rubble pile for the North Tower, and the North Tower was positioned right next to Building 6. Building 6 is an 8-story building. Yeah, they're right there. On the left, you've got Building 6, and on the right, you've got what is the remnants of the North Tower, where 16 people survived in that clump of rubble. And that, if you look at the building itself, or the outer shell of the tower, you will see that there are bigger spacings at the bottom part, and the top part is a lot closer. And that's the lobby height. That's 3 stories. These guys here are on ground level.
So 10 floors are theoretically missing?
Yeah, 10 floors are missing. And
Jesus
again,
Christ.
The people who would like to sell you on a conventional controlled demolition, what they state, yes, that's a beautiful, beautiful picture, because right in the background, you've got the remnants of Building 7. Building 7, again, do your 12.5% on the 47 stories it was, and the rubble pile there was only 3 stories high instead of around about 6.5 or 7 that you would expect. And Building 6 itself, that hole in the middle of it was empty. It was like a cookie cutter where you just scooped out the middle of it. And right next to the North Tower and the South Tower, you had a 22-story Marriott Hotel, the Building 3. And pretty much everything of that building disappeared except a small little block of it. And 14 people survived in that building as well. And that's something that the 9/11 Truth Movement don't really talk about, because it completely blows their narrative out of the water. Because if it was thermite and bombs and all of that kind of stuff, these 16 survivors in the North Tower would have even been deafened. They would have got burned by the thermite flashes. They could have been blinded by bright flashes going off and all of this. And the statements that they made is, when the building was unraveling, they heard a sound of a freight train coming at them. They don't mention anything about hearing big explosions or loud booms or anything. And I would suggest anybody who wants to deep dive and hear the testimonies of these guys who survived it is look for the 2006 documentary, The Miracle of Stairwell B. And just listen to what they explain. They explain that they were inside this building. They heard the rumble. They heard the sound of a freight train coming at them. They felt a levitation effect, and then everything went dark. All of a sudden, it went silent. The next moment, they saw a ray of sunlight coming through. Now, imagine this. You were on the 6th floor of a 110-story building, 500,000 tons. You're expecting to be stuck in there for weeks for them to get rid of all the rubble. In the next moment, you see a ray of sunlight coming out, and then around about an hour or two later, the guys free you from where you are, and there's nothing above you.
Nothing. And it's sunlight.
Yeah.
And
that will freak you out.
So 104 stories above her, theoretically, that's what they're saying, is 100 and whatever floors above her come down, but they survive it. And not only did they survive it, but they're out within a couple hours of the actual attack. And if I don't remember, I mean, God, Jesus Christ, an earthquake in Nepal trapped people in a hotel for like 2 days. They couldn't get them out. And that's like a 10-story hotel. And so that is really bizarre. I never thought about that. So they felt it a levitating effect?
Yeah. There was a huge, massive wind, and the one gentleman that is testified about this numerous times, and you can find many interviews with him, is the FNDY firefighter Mickey Cross. And they even interviewed him last year with the 24th anniversary, where he recounts it again. And what he basically states is when he heard the rumbling, he just coiled up into a small ball, and the next moment he felt his helmet starting to lift off, and he basically pulled it down and just crunched down into a small little ball and just said, okay, fine, if I die now, it's got to be quick. And he's the gentleman that's talked about it. But there's another gentleman, and his name is, sorry, he's Italian, I might be getting the pronunciation wrong, but Pascal Buscelli, or also known as the 9/11 surfer. And this gentleman was coming down in stairwell B from the 84th floor, and somewhere in the 40s, they found a firefighter coming up in the stairwell. The firefighter said, "Okay, guys, when you get to the 23rd floor, there is a lift that's still working, so you can take that lift and go down." And the people with him from his office, they just kept going down. When they got to the 23rd floor, they said, "Oh, we're going to take the lift." They said no. They went down another floor. When they got to the 22nd, all of a sudden, that's when the building started shaking and rumbling. The people with him ran into the 22nd floor, and he decided to jump down to the next ledge in the stairwell, and he curled up into a small little ball. And he then said, "Well, you've got this rumbling, it's the sound of a freight train coming at me." And the next moment, I just started falling through the air. And he ended up landing on a ledge that was run about 3-4 stories high. And when he woke up, and you've got to remember, he's on the 22nd floor. And when he woke up and he looked up, there was blue sky above him. And he was kind of like trapped on this perch where he was. The guys had to bring ladders and ropes and everything to get him out of there, and he had a broken ankle. And
I call that a win.
Yeah, at 8:00 that night, he got home to his pregnant wife, and they've actually got a video. I think it's her brother that was there that videoed Pascal being delivered via taxi to the house. And it took him a number of years to work through this trauma, because he's the only guy out of his whole office that survived. So you can go look for a great interview. It's an 1.5-hour interview with him and his wife. I think it was published on YouTube in 2023, and you'll be able to find it. So, and then numerous interviews with him. I think he also wrote a book. So just search 9/11 Surfer or 9/11 Miracle Man to hear his testimony as well. He's one of two civilians, along with 14 first responders, that survived in the North Tower.
Why? Okay, I guess the looming question has to be, no matter what. Now, I kind of want to like grow past the idea of the how it happened, but the why. Why? If the official narrative is to be believed, why didn't the FBI or the CIA or anyone, I mean, Condoleezza Rice sends a memo on August 9th saying that bin Laden is going to try us to, we know not only all of the hijackers, but John Brennan, the CIA director, brought them here and then let them go back and forth because he wanted people on the inside of Al-Qaeda, right? So if we're to believe the official narrative, why does this happen? Is it just to bring us into a war and a 20-year war with Afghanistan because we're told they have weapons of mass destruction? I mean, it's all fucking doesn't make sense to me. Why?
Look, everybody wants to jump to the why, but we've got to remember 9/11 was a crime that was committed. And you've got to start any criminal investigation, and you've got to really understand what happened.
Okay.
in order to get over to how it happened and then why it happened and what the motivation was. And a lot of people want to jump to the why, and there's a lot of people who've pretty much sorted out the why, but the biggest contentious issue is what actually happened and the technology that was put into play, because it was a demonstration to people in the know that, hi guys, we've got this, we're doing this on live TV, and the whole world is too stupid to even realize what we've just done.
Okay. And that's what I was going to say. Is it plausible that because the way I've always been taught to investigate something, or you got two sides of the story, right? Yeah. The truth is somewhere in between. So we got the official narrative, right? The narrative they want us to believe, right? Planes definitely fucking hit the building unless they have some way of hologram faking. I mean, which I wouldn't put it past them. Like, we know the technology does exist today. Did it exist in 2001? I don't know.
Yes.
So could they have figured out, oh shit, they're about to hit these towers with some planes, and they're about to, so they know the intelligence community finds out all this shit, right? CIA, Alex Station, the memo August 9th, they know it's about to happen, but they step back and they let it happen we see that stock options were taken out. People it's if you start looking at that, the finances, right? Follow the money kind of thing. Dick Cheney's, we're missing trillions of dollars. The next day, 9/11 happened. So if you look at all that, could the intelligence community have said, okay, it's going to happen. We're going to let it happen. And we might even help it. Yeah. We might even help it with a directed energy weapon. Make sure that those fucking towers come down. If they're going to hit them, make it count. And that seems to me like maybe what happened. It's a little bit of a mix of both.
In a way, look, 9/11 wasn't planned over a weekend. It was a couple of decades in the making. And if there's one particularly very well researched documentary that you should watch, and which I state is your crash course into 9/11, and that's 9/11 Alchemy Facing Reality, because it goes into all the various technologies, UFO links, all of that, and showing you the patents that the US Navy's got, the CIA, the FBI, all of that.
For directed energy.
And where I'm really disappointed in the UFO field is that none of them, and this is Stephen Greer, Mike Barrow, a whole bunch of different guys in the UFO field, are gaslighting their followers, their supporters, and they pretty much defrauding their supporters out of their donations, just like the 9/11 Truth Movement is doing, because when you really deep dive and go onto Substack, search for 9/11 planes research. This is a gentleman out of the UK who's gotten all the FOIA requests pertaining to the NTSB, the FBI.
Is that John Greenwald Jr.?
All that kind of stuff. And when you really deep dive into the planes, you would find that all 4 planes or alleged planes that crashed that day were still in the air after they allegedly crashed.
What?
And it was not CGI, and it was not anything remote controlled drones. It was not switched planes or anything. It was 3D volumetric projection technology that was in play, that the Navy has got patents going back all the way to the 1970s. And a lot of the UFO guys, especially this year, have been changing their narratives, where they are now bringing in the what if the UFOs we see are actual holograms. And 9/11 Alchemy Facing Reality puts it nicely into play with all the patents, the various articles that were written as far back as 2001 pertaining to the Navy and the US military wanting to have some sort of holographic projection that they could use in the Middle East to project a picture of Allah and have their adversaries run away.
Right.
And once you look and study basic flight physics, you will find that a commercial jet, even a military plane that's painted to look like a civilian plane or a drone or whatever, cannot fly at the speeds that was recorded on 9/11 without breaking up. It is impossible for a plane to fly or a commercial sized jet to fly at 600 miles per hour at about 700 feet. And your real world example to understand that and see that is on November 12, 2001, you had flight 587 out of New York crash in New York City because it got stuck behind some turbulence of a plane in front of it. It started flying to the guy tried to overcorrect and he broke up the tail section of the plane. As soon as that's gone, the plane falls out of the sky due to the thickness of the air and the molecules. It ripped off the engines of the plane and they actually hit the ground before the planes. Even the impact dynamics of flight 175, because there's so much video on that, up to 55 of them, it just shows impossible physics with regards to that. And a number of pilots came out and talked about the fact that what we saw that day is impossible. But people took pictures, they took video, they saw it and they heard it. But it was a real-time illusion. So the UFO guys who've been waiting for Project Bluebeam all these years to happen after Serge Manos talked about this in the 70s. Well, guys, you all saw it on 9/11. You guys just don't want to talk about it.
So you're saying that those planes didn't exist? No. Really?
And there's actual government proof from the NTSB and the FIA proving all 4 planes were still in the air well past the alleged impact times. All the receipts are on 9/11 Planes Research Substack, and a lot of the work that's gone into 9/11 Alchemy Facing Reality is in that documentary from 9/11 Planes Research. Official documents that have been released over the last 24 years.
I can't even wrap my head around that.
But we saw it on TV. So it's got to be true.
It's got to be true, right? It's got to be true. I watched it happen.
How many times?
So probably, dude, I was a paper boy at the time.
Yeah.
I have somewhere at my parents' house, at my dad's house, I should say. My mom's no longer with us. I cut out every single front page of the paper, like every single day, and put it in a scrapbook. God damn, that probably would be worth some worth some bucks, man. Yeah, I mean, those are like legitimate. But okay, so holy shit, I've never heard anyone say that in my life. So
actually, wait. Actually, there was a gentleman called Dr. Morgan Reynolds. He's still alive. I had an interview with him on the 4th of July this year. You can go onto his website, nomoregames.net, and interview him, please, because he's the only man that has actually taken the government to court, stating that the NIST impact plane studies are bullshit. And John Lear, you might have heard of
I
John
know who
Lear.
John Lear is, of course.
He wrote a affidavit stating everything that was wrong with the official narrative, how a plane can't fly that fast, how the impact dynamics is complete and utter bunk. And he basically breaks it down for you, for anybody with a working brain that's not going to fall back onto their cognitive dissonance or playing the game of of just not wanting to look at the evidence, and they explain it. But unfortunately, Dr. Morgan Reynolds, when he came out with that in 2007, he got ostracized by the 9/11 Truth Movement. So if you want to support Architects for an Engineered Truth with Richard Gage and his cronies, if you go onto their petition, they've got vetting processes on there that states that two of the main vetting processes is the person is not allowed to mention anything about no planes, and the person is not allowed to mention anything about Dr. Judy Wood, because when you sign up, you give them your name, surname, phone number, and your email address, and then they go search your online history and then decide whether or not you're good enough to be on the group. And when you go into the little echo chambers and you want to mention something like this, you immediately get kicked out. Also, when it gets to the evidence of Dr. Wood, she's been on an official block list on Wikipedia since 2010. Now, Wikipedia is one of the biggest CIA, Mossad, whatever intelligence agency out there who wants to control some sort of narrative will make sure that they've got their disinfo on there. But one person who's not allowed there is Dr. Wood. You can go onto any 9/11 Truther Wikipedia page, go insert some links to her website or write about her information, and that will be scrapped within hours.
That's crazy. That's crazy. So Judy Wood, Dr. Judy Wood is. Let's talk about some of these people. Who is Richard Gage?
Well,
why would he have any expertise in this?
Well, his whole story is he was driving down the road and then he heard some sort of guy on coast to coast radio talking about how the government narrative isn't correct, and he was mentioning something about Building 7, and that all of a sudden gave him the whole hoo-ha that he's now got to get into this. But we've got to rewind a bit, because in 2005, the first organization, and that was started by a gentleman called Jim Fetzer and Stephen E. Jones. Stephen E. Jones was a nuclear physicist or something like that, Brigham and Young University, worked at Los Alamos Labs and all of this kind of stuff. These two guys started Scholars for 9/11 Truth in 2005, and then they roped in a whole bunch of scholars and people looking into 9/11. And it was a sort of a honeypot, if you can call it that, like Stephen Greer's Disclosure Project. So that they could keep tabs on all the movers and shakers and people who might be able to blow the lid off the cover up. And then what happened is Stephen E. Jones came with this whole little thermite dust sample study of his, and Dr. Wood basically told him no, but and they had a to and fro. Stephen Jones would write a paper stating something, and then Dr. Wood would write a counter paper to that, and that's when the mudslinging kind of thing started. And by 2006, Scholars for 9/11 Truth kind of like disbanded. Dr. Wood met Dr. Morgan Reynolds and a bunch of other people, and they decided, okay, fine, these guys have got some sort of weird agenda. And by 2007, Dr. Wood found a solicitor, and Dr. Morgan Reynolds found a solicitor, and they each submitted a request for correction to NIST on the NIST report,
What is
stating
NIST?
that the National Institute for Standards, the main body that investigated what happened at the World Trade Center. Now, NIST was tasked with figuring out why the buildings collapsed.
Okay.
But in the 10,000-page NIST report, they only cover the events after the airplane-shaped holes were created and up to the initiation of collapse. So the whole NIST report as it stands is fraudulent because it never explained what happened, and that's what they were tasked to do. So Dr. Morgan Reynolds and Dr. Wood saw the mistakes that were made in these reports, and they submitted a request for correction. That kind of like made them whistleblowers. From there, under the Data Information Act, because it was fraudulent data that they were giving the people, they could then sue the subcontractors, the 23 NIST subcontractors who were writing these reports. And Dr. Wood took it as far as the US Supreme Court. She initially filed in 2007, but it was under seal, so she couldn't advertise or talk about it in public. And about a month or two after she initially submitted her QTAM whistleblower case, then all of a sudden Architects for Engineered Truth's website popped up, and they were talking about thermite, molten metal, and all of this kind of stuff. That's their main selling points. They too ended up submitting a request for correction to NIST, but there was no mention of thermite or molten metal in their request for correction. So that already is a very, very important point, because to this day, this is still what they talk about.
Right.
Now, after they all of a sudden popped up, then in 2009, Dr. Wood went to the US Supreme Court. The US Supreme Court judge basically in his summation said, look, you've got merit here or whatever, but I'm not going to listen to your case. So that's what this US Supreme Court can do. They can or can't listen to your stuff, but it wasn't dismissed due to merit, because it had merit. But the guy basically stated that, look, I'm not going to listen to this because this is like, directed energy weapons. Who knows about this? Yeah.
I mean,
and at that stage, remember, it was a major thing in the media where the guys basically said that anybody that dares question the official government narrative is a pariah to the memory of the people that lost their lives. It was such a psychological operation, even that was carried through the media by, how dare you question the government? We won't lie to you. And that is also, that was so powerful out of the slogan, never forget. What should you not forget? Not forget the trauma, because that's what they based it on. Uh-huh. And once you can separate yourself from that trauma, then it's a lot easier. And that's why you'll find that a lot of the people who look into 9/11, who write books about it, aren't American, because we're not so emotionally invested in it. We weren't so traumatized because of it. Because I can remember.
Do you know what they had us do every single day for like every single? I might be. I don't know exactly how long it went on. Every single day at 9:11 a.m., we would have to stand in school for a moment of silence and in remembrance. Little kids, fucking kids in third grade. In third grade. I mean, in kindergarten, they were doing it too. It has all the makings of some sort of psychological operation when you stand back. They're repeating the same narrative. Anyone who questions that narrative is ostracized, right? Yeah. And you're fundamentally bleeding it into the minds of those people like myself, who, even though I talk about UFOs, I talk about directed energy weapons, I talk about government conspiracy, no one wants to link it all together and say, wait a second, that seems odd.
Same playbook, 25-year-old playbook.
Same exact fucking thing. And I mean, the Disclosure Project happens a month or two before 9/11, right? That they wrangle up all these people who have all this knowledge. And then 9/11, you start putting the dates together and you're like, wait a second, something doesn't add up here.
Yeah.
It has all the makings of a psychological operation.
Yeah.
Repeat, discredit, repeat, discredit, right? And then we're in a 20-year war where we're American, where people were so pissed. People were so fucking pissed, so angry, so scared that they gave up some of their rights with the Patriot Act, and they had their 18-year-old boys signing up to go fight a war against people we had no fucking idea that were involved.
Yeah.
So why? The why is what does it for me. It aggravates me. It makes my blood boil.
Well, I'm sorry to tell you this, but the way that the rest of the world looks at America, you guys are the terrorists. You guys are the guys with this bloody ego going in everywhere, causing shit where you're not welcome or don't have a fight in the whole aspect. And it was all about power and control. And you guys were also used to advance the interest of a certain little place.
Yeah.
And it's been now opened up as well. Now, also at that stage, America was on the looming into a recession as well. And unfortunately, America's economy is very reliant on your war machine.
Of course.
Because if the war machine isn't ticking over, so many industries are going to see their asses.
Absolutely. I can absolutely agree with that. And
how many thousands of people are employed by the military or subcontractors building weapons, building the clothes, the shoes, the tanks, the this, the that, the that. It's okay. Let me just thumb suck. Maybe a quarter of the country is dependent on the U.S. war machine.
Yeah. And when that is not, like you said, when that's not turning, profit's not being made. Profit is the bottom line, and I think it's just fucking wild to think that some sort of false flag operation happened, right? Not just happened, but happened in the heart of the United States, New York City, right? The city that never sleeps. Feed me an Ambien, Jay-Z, right? Fucking whatever. But it seems like we were all given some Ambien that day and just made to forget what happened because it was so psychologically traumatic watching it over and over and over and over. It just made people angry. And trust me, it probably wasn't fun to be a Muslim in the United States in 2001.
But also at the same time, the thing is, just imagine in your city where you live, what is the biggest building or the tallest building in your city, or the
John Hancock building?
Okay, how many floors?
It's probably only like 60 to 80, maybe.
Okay, so next time you're there, go stand next to that building
and
look up, and then again imagine that building without huge explosions or major flashes of light from thermite, because remember, go and watch any little video of a thermite
right. It's a
experiment. It's usually like a cup of thermite, and it makes such a huge fire show. Now imagine the calculations that the guys have given is you would need 29,000 metric tons of thermite for each tower to sever the columns. Now, that's going to be one hell of a fucking fire show, dude. And we didn't see any bright light or flashes, and we didn't hear any loud booms going down. You hear a rumbling with that building. Now, just go stand next to that 80-story building and just imagine this thing is going to unravel in less than 10 seconds. That is new physics. That's new physics.
How fast did the building come down?
Between 9 and 12 seconds
of being hit.
Hour after they were hit, but the physical disintegration of the buildings was between 9 and 12 seconds. And if you stood on top of one of the twin towers and you dropped a bowling ball, it would take 12 seconds to hit the ground. And those buildings disappeared faster than that.
No fucking way.
Yeah.
Wow. So let me ask you a question. How far up does this go? Dick Cheney, Bush?
Yeah, Dick Cheney, it's a real mix and match. Dick Cheney obviously knew something about it, and the bunch of other guys were tasked with covering it up. The whole dancing Israelis, they are patsies to push the
for anyone who doesn't know, for anyone who doesn't know, lady, she sees a bunch of people kind of like celebrating, and the FBI picks that van up about 5 hours later. They arrest the people. They find out that they're all Israeli.
Yeah,
they're all Israeli, and they have connections to intelligence. Mossad.
And they were arrested. They were held for a short while, and they were carted out back to Israel.
So what are you saying that is?
They were patsies. Just they your 9/11 Lee Harvey Oswald, to give you a narrative with regards to that. Because if you go back into the Israeli art students as well, and the name gelatin, when you do a little bit of deeper research into it, gelatin is another name that's given for the stuff that they use for holographic projection as well. So that's why I say go and watch 9/11 Alchemy Facing Reality, because it goes through all of this. Why would, if everybody's going on about Israel did it, why would there still be articles about these Israeli art students on the New York Times that was written at that time? They would basically take it away. It's a narrative. You've got to think of it this way. Do you think the people that planned 9/11 forgot to plan a cover-up?
No.
Then what would that cover-up look like? And if you read Dr. Wood's book or listen to some of the presentations, she basically mentions that what they did is they orchestrated this, and then obviously they left some Easter eggs for researchers to find, and that would be enough to keep people up to a certain point and think, okay, fine, now we've got an explanation, and they won't go any deeper. It's exactly the same with old Lucky Larry that had his little breakfast at the top of the towers every day with his tenants, and he was on the phone with Netanyahu every Sunday, and he was called up and said, hey man, don't you want to buy the twin towers, because the Port Authority is looking for somebody to become the new tenant. And he then borrowed like $10 million from somewhere to put down a down payment on it, and then a couple of weeks later 9/11 happened, and he had a payday of $4.5 billion. But he mentioned in that one interview where he was talking about, yeah, we had to pull the people out of building 6. So now everybody's going on, ooh, it must be a controlled demolition. But there's a very important anomaly with building 7 that does not get mentioned by anybody.
What is that?
Okay, let's do a
Well,
quick.
hold on, because I did just write something down and circle it. If I'm not mistaken, where the World Trade Centers, where it stood, the water, there's essentially a dam right there, right?
So the Hudson River, yeah.
So if 110 stories of building came down on that, you'd expect the dam to break, right?
Yeah, they built a bathtub around the 2 twin towers because they needed to go
So
down
why
to
wasn't that
bedrock.
affected?
Precisely. The thing is, also, building 6 next to the North Tower was an 8-story building that had that cookie cutter out of it. And when the controlled demolition guys came in to start clearing the rubble, the guys were too afraid to use explosives because they were afraid that they're going to damage the bathtub retaining wall that keeps the water of the Hudson River out of it. So they actually used cables to pull the remnants of that building down. So if you want to talk about pull it, the real pullet of 9/11 was building 6, because Lucky Larry just dropped that little thingy in there to have people think about it. Now, building 7, if you look at something like the Seattle Kingdom controlled demolition that was done a number of years ago, that building weighed 130,000 tons. And when that controlled demolition happened, it registered a 2.3 on the Richter scale. Okay.
So for anyone who doesn't know, that's seismic activity. So that is okay.
And with seismic activity and a seismograph, when the wave comes in, they basically record what is a S wave and a P wave, primary wave and a secondary wave. Now, on 9/11, for the Twin Towers and Building 7, there were no S or P waves. They only registered surface waves. A surface wave is a wave meaning that a weight was lifted. You can imagine a mattress, the old-time mattresses with the springs in it. 2 people are lying on top of it. Now, one person gets off. You can feel that disturbance. So it's as if the weight was removed. Now, building the Seattle Kingdom, 130,000 tons, left a 2.4. People at a Taylor Swift concert jumping up and down registered a 2.3 in 2023 or 2024 somewhere.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Building 7 and Seattle Kingdom was about 20 stories. Now, building 7 was 47 stories, and it weighed 230,000 tons. So that's 100,000 tons more than the Seattle Kingdom that registered 2.4. What did building 7 register?
Of course, I would say probably in the 3 or 4s, right? You'd think. Yeah. What did it register?
0.6.
So you're telling me that a Taylor Swift concert caused more seismic activity than building 7 coming down?
And the 2 towers, because the one tower registered a 2.1 and the other tower registered a 2.3.
What the
There was nothing slamming to the ground. Most of those towers turned to dust before they hit the ground. And if you really look at the slow-mo of some of those beams falling down and what you think is dust or smoke or whatever trailing behind it, it's actually a dust but of that physical solid metal falling to the ground, turning to dust before it hits the ground. That is metal transmutation in real time. Because I don't know how well you know the layout of the World Trade Center. So if you look at the picture of the World Trade Center layout, you will see North Tower, South Tower, and it had the Thompson Square, and in the middle of the square there was a 27-foot high sphere in the middle of that plaza. And that sphere was not buried under any rubble. Now, keep in mind, 12.5% for controlled demolition for a 110-story building should give you 13.7 stories. Number one, those two rubble piles were missing. The basements weren't filled with rubble. And then that 27-foot high sphere in the plaza was not covered by any debris whatsoever. And it's been repurposed, and it's still in New York.
What the fuck happened on September 11th, man?
Dude, it's sci-fi, man. It's sci-fi. Yeah, so you've got the World Trade Center, and roundabout where the T of Trade Center is where the 27-foot high sphere was. So guys like Richard Gage and everything want to sell you the fact that no, both the towers were blown to bits with explosives, and everything was ejected laterally 600 feet in all directions. So obviously that sphere isn't further than 600 feet away, and you can actually see the rubble around it is not even higher than that sphere.
Right, which again, it just does not add up. Literally does not add up.
It's very difficult for people to just compute that.
Right. So, and we know that false flags have been done before. This is not a new concept, right?
USS Liberty, Pearl Harbor,
Gulf of Tonkin,
World War II, all of that.
So, okay, if what you're saying is true, or what's the message here? Because the United States used a direct energy weapon, so and we know that Tesla had worked on something like this. The FBI, when Tesla dies, they raid his hotel because he was staying in a hotel, I believe in New York, right?
Yeah.
The person that raids his hotel is Trump's fucking great grandfather, whatever.
Trump's uncle, John Trump or something like that, was the guy who was sent by the US government to go look through his papers to see if there's anything of interest. But what Tesla also did in 1943, before he died or whatever, he ended up sending blueprints for this weapon of his to numerous countries so that nobody's got the upper hand. And he was actually helping the US government, not directly because they didn't want to be associated with him, and he had an assistant that was working with him, and the government ended up giving the assistant a lab. So Tesla would feed the information to his assistant. The assistant would create all the stuff in his lab and sell that off to the US military. There's a gentleman, Dr. Andrea Provochka. The people just need to go onto my Substack and just search under my archive, search for Tesla. I've got the whole time frame there with how he sent his technology to various people and how the US military worked with him, and then the interview with this guy who was writing his autobiography, and he also had the papers of Nikola Tesla in his hand, and facilitated that his papers be released from the US to Hungary so that it could go to the Tesla Museum there in his native country as well.
Okay. Now, whether Tesla was just a genius and came up with this death ray, this directed energy weapon on his own. I think other people have suspected that maybe, an alien non-human intelligence, at least sparked the idea in him. And we see this through a lot of genius, right? Whether it's through thought experiment or some of them, most people, like musicians, some, they'll just come out and say it. Like the idea it's coming through me, and I am just the quote unquote vessel. Yes. So, and we look at the muse, the root word of music or amusement, right? And we start putting all this together. Now, regardless whether it's reverse engineered alien technology, right? Or just advancements in human technology through whatever means possible. People had premonitions of planes hitting the building. And we want to talk about this idea of Project Bluebeam, right? Do you think that might have been influenced because a lot of people in the surrounding area of New York City reported having dreams, premonitions of planes hitting the towers? Could that be a result of these directed energy weapons and this idea of Bluebeam being able to trick people through literally like affecting their thoughts? Do you think that there's a possibility that the United States government or whoever, the deep state, whoever the fuck you want to call it, did that on purpose?
Well, there was predictive programming with the lone gunman around about 2 months or 3 months before that, with their pilot episode with the plane hitting the Twin Towers and all of that. So there's been a lot has been written on predictive programming and all of that. So there's a part of that. There might be people with a sixth sense that dreamt about that, possible, but
a lot of
the
people
technology that they used that day was some sort of 3D projection technology, and that's what John Lear also talked about, because he mentioned that the guys have had that technology for a very long time. He was talking about a presentation that was given where a gentleman was in an auditorium talking about the history of television, walked around between the people and all of that. And by the end of the talk, he said, well, thank you for having me. And he was switched off and he just disappeared. And the people couldn't even realize that this guy walking next to them was a hologram. And that's how good it was. And if you go back to 2008, during the Obama presidential race, counting the votes or something, they actually had a holographic projection being done by CNN, and they actually dumbed down the version that they showed on the TV because people would have freaked out about how lifelike it could be. So they made it look like the Star Wars little 3D hologram in those stages. And you've got to keep in mind that the black ops technology and research that those guys do, that's so compartmentalized, is 40 to 50 years ahead of what gets dripped fed to us plebs. And it's not even in the physics books that your physics teacher today would have, because a lot of those, and that's how entrenched this hidden technology is. It may be reverse engineered. It might just be stuff that guys have thought about. Remember, I don't know, do you know about the 1951 Invention Secrecy Act?
No, but I mean, continue.
1951 Invention Secrecy Act was put into play just after the Second World War, because the government was afraid that you would have some sort of tinkerer create something that could be either bought by a foreign entity or whatever, and then weaponized, or somebody could invent something that could be detrimental to the status quo, like somebody inventing a carburetor for his car in 1972 that will give you 100 miles to the gallon, and then the guy ended up
Stanley Myers
committing suicide by shooting himself twice in the back of the head, or Stanley Myers with his water-powered car.
Oh, that's
numerous other guys, and you should know Thomas E. Bearden, Lieutenant Colonel Thomas E. Bearden, and he was a big proponent of free energy devices and all of that, and he went around talking to inventors, and he tried to patent a bunch of his stuff, and everything was then just deemed, anything free energy is deemed perpetual motion. So anything deemed perpetual motion does not get approved by the US Patent Office. And that's why it's so difficult for us to get free from big power.
It's either, because the Patent Office, I think, I think they seize, I can't remember the number, but it's an absurd amount of anything pertaining to free energy. It's either seized, and then you can, once it's seized under a national security tag, they just they shelve it.
Yeah.
And and the inventor is only allowed to do business with the US government at that point, right?
They've got over 6,000 patents. So bugger going to Area 51 to see what's going on there. Repeal the 1951 Invention Secrecy Act and show us those 6,000 patents.
Whew. So they weaponize the Patent Office. They've got this. This seems to be, like you said, this was not planned over a weekend.
No.
They seem to. So again, how do you deploy a direct energy weapon? Guys like Eric Hecker, for instance, who talk about we have this passive and not just passive, but this weapon array in the Antarctic at the South Pole station. And it caused an earthquake in 2008 when they flipped it on. If you were
now ask him why. After I asked him on his X about Hurricane Erin, why he's not talking about that, or the work of Dr. Wood, why he immediately blocked me.
I will ask him that. I will. But I'm just saying, he's the only guy I've ever heard about talk about like knowing where one of these things are. So if we're going to go on that route, where was this direct energy weapon deployed from? Was it space?
Okay, let's go back to after the dust settled. There were two US military contractors that were put into place to run the security of Ground Zero. And they locked down Ground Zero from September 13, and they also wrote reports that made up the 10,000-page NIST report. These two companies are ARA and SIAC, and one of the companies also rebranded to Leidos. And these guys specialize in psychological operations, they impact dynamics, weather research, and then also components of directed energy weapons. And the one company was also tasked with knowing at that stage of any other country who's got weapons of mass destruction. And these are two of the main defendants in Dr. Judy Wood's QTAM case, and then also Dr. Morgan's Reynolds QTAM whistleblower case. And those two companies are part and parcel of a organization that was established in the late 1990s called the Directed Energy Professional Society. One of the other founding members of this, or contributors to their fund, is Boeing. And Boeing does a hell of a lot of research into directed energy weapons as well. And this year, the Directed Energy Weapon Professional Society had a seminar in the same week as 9/11. They do it every year in the week of 9/11. And they actually stated that the directed energy weapon department or people, it's a $9 billion industry. and they've got up to, I think, 10,000 or 7,000 people employed in research of directed energy weapons.
Jesus.
So it's been around for a very long time, and even in 1985, there was a CNN investigative report on RF weaponry, radio frequency weaponry, and stuff, where Colonel Tom E. Bearden was showing satellite pictures of the Soviets that were seemingly doing tests on some sort of weaponry that he said was like focusing energy on a distant point, or even being able to extract it from a different point. And the satellite pictures that he showed were from 1977. And when you look at those satellite pictures, it looks a lot like the satellite pictures that you got off the ISS on 9/11 itself. And whilst we're talking about the ISS, is that the one colonel who was on the ISS, whilst they were circumventing the Earth and he was taking videos, he basically said live on air, look, I'm looking down at New York City, and I'm looking up and down the East Coast to see if I can see something else. But he kind of like forgot to mention that there was a hurricane the size of Katrina, or even bigger than that, 500 miles off the coast of New York City. And that Hurricane Erin was making a beeline for New York for 4 days straight, and people hardly knew about it. There was underreporting of this hurricane. And out of experience, if a hurricane is approaching, the news agencies have a field day scaring the living bejesus out of people with regards to that. And that hurricane actually affected New York on September 10th, where there was a major electrical storm in New York City. So it was a thunderstorm and all of that, and then the cold front moved in, and Hurricane Erin basically stopped dead in its tracks for 24 hours whilst the whole of 9/11 happened. And as soon as Building 7 dropped at 5:20 p.m. that afternoon, it then made a 180-degree turn to the right, and then fizzled off in the next 2 days and over the ocean.
So you think that, is this a result of energy, the energy weapon, or is this a result of them also having the ability to control the weather and like, hey guys, don't fucking hit New York. We got something going on. Change that direction.
Well, they've been able to control hurricanes since 1947.
Right. This is always tied back to like the Israelis as well, the Mossad and that.
No, but the U.S. Navy's first cloud seeding and everything started in 1947. There's a clip that I can send you with.
Didn't they hit the same town in Florida like twice by accident?
Yeah, well, they seeded it, and then it completely caused a hell of a lot of damage. And what's so strange about Hurricane Erin is it made a beeline and it stood still for that day, and we can only what's the English word now?
Theorize.
Speculate that if you look at the work of John Hutchinson and his Hutchinson effect and the work that he did in his lab and then ended up in Los Alamos labs and all of that, he would create a static field and then have some Tesla coils around this static field. And when he surged the juice, that's when he could manage to have metals break, split, gellify, have these metals actually glow, which seemed to be white hot, but was cold to the touch. And what he was doing was, and that was all ex-Navy surplus army equipment that he got out of Goodwill or wherever. And he was replicating the work of Nikola Tesla. And Nikola Tesla could do all of this. And Hutchinson ended up doing this in the late 70s, 83. The Pentagon guys came to his lab in Canada, checked out what the hell he was doing, and Lieutenant Colonel or Lieutenant John Alexander, you must have heard about him as well, and his 5-hour interview on Sean Ryan, where he was
know
talking
him
about
personally. I've interviewed him several times, actually. He's a good friend. I just keep him at an arm's distance. I'm friendly enough with him where I want the information he has, but I'm not friendly enough to not assume that he's not playing me.
Well, he is, most probably, because he definitely knows.
He's known as the father, for anyone who doesn't know, he's known as the father of non-lethal weaponry.
Yes.
So.
Yes. And again, when was the first reported use of non-lethal weaponry or lasers or something like that? Do you know?
It's funny you mention lasers because, you know, I can't remember where I saw this, but like today, they have the technology that they can send a laser out and sound will be projected from said laser. So like warning. So some people, when they're approaching like a highly secure or sensitive facility, they'll hear an audible warning in their heads. Do not come closer, or, you know, do not breach. You are encroaching on highly sensitive, you know, something like that. So if we have that technology today, again, this brings me back to the whole idea of DARPA. What the fuck do they have in the black right now?
But the thing is, they've already said publicly in 2023 that the US military is now using lasers that they are beaming from satellite to US army installations in electricity, free electricity, like Nikola Tesla wanted to beam around the world. They're already working on that. And the first reports of directed energy weapons type, laser type stuff was in 1989 during the Panama invasion. Go watch the investigative report, The Panama Deception, that came out in 1992, where they mention that it was a chance to use experimental weapons. They show pictures of some sort of army guy or whatever that just ended up being a blob of mush, and that there were vehicles that were cut in half with some sort of laser type thing. And that's also the first time that they used the stealth bomber that as well. Then fast forward a little bit, that's 89, 2003, you had the Gulf War, and another documentary came out in 2006 where these guys were doing the investigation of what was happening, and it's called Star Wars in Iraq, that came out in 2006, that talks about all this directed energy weapons, because they say that some sort of directed energy weapon was used on civilians there, and they also interview Colonel John Alexander about that.
Really?
So Alexander, just ask him, next time you talk to him, ask him about what he thinks about the evidence presented by Dr. Judy Wood and that directed energy weapons were involved. And I would love to hear how he responds to that.
I'll ask him literally right after we get off.
Because the other thing is you've got Sean Ryan, who's had him on, who talks about. He's got this other series now. He was talking about the voice of God technologies and all of that. You've got Tucker Carlson in his 4th episode that says, you've got to focus on the foreknowledge, but don't look at the directed energy weapons.
Yeah, it's odd, isn't it?
Precisely.
Why?
And
these guys are because
the thing is, when it comes back. And this is also Catherine Austin Fitz, when she was on Tucker Carlson's show as well. She was talking about the danger of breakthrough energy and how it could be weaponized. Okay. She mentioned that friends of hers put up the Breakthrough Energy Conference in 2012, but she made no mention of the fact that this breakthrough energy that is so dangerous, when weaponized, was used on 9/11.
Well,
Because if it wasn't weaponized, you could use this energy and give everybody free energy.
oh yeah, naturally, right? But why would
Because
I do that when
I
you can?
don't know if you know the cover up of Cold Fusion from 1989.
Not necessarily.
Okay, Cold Fusion. That stage, billions was being pushed into a new energy source. The guys were trying to recreate the sun by
Oh, that
creating
sounds like a great
fusion.
idea.
Yeah. So they wanted to recreate the sun. Billions of dollars pulled into it. No, they never got excess energy out of it. And then all of a sudden, here comes two guys with the name of Pons and Fleischmann, who were tinkering around for a couple of years in their laboratory. And they say, well, we have now created what we call is low energy nuclear reactions without ionizing radiation. You can watch the documentary, what's it? Not Watergate, Heavy Watergate, the documentary Heavy Watergate. And these two guys ended up telling, going public and saying, okay, fine, we've got excess heating here, but it was new physics. They were rewriting the laws of physics because there's no way that you can put in a certain amount of energy and get more out of it in the system that they were using. And lo and behold, all of a sudden, a news conference is held by a gentleman with the name of Stephen E. Jones.
Sorry, I had to fix that.
Captain Thermite. And he says, and he sits with a bunch of physicists, and he says, okay, guys, I don't think that their stuff has got merit. Who agrees with me? And then they had science by vote, and the guys were kind of like discredited in that press conference. And then a day later, you had the Exxon Valdez disaster. And how does media work? They just love a good disaster. So then the whole discussion and the debates on cold fusion just dwindled away. And about 20 years later, CNN took it upon themselves to revisit cold fusion. And you can find the YouTube video of the CNN investigative report. Just look for cold fusion is hot again. And they basically proved that it's true, and the Pentagon is working on it. And if that wasn't suppressed way back when, we could all have a small little cold fusion reactor in our house and just work that into your car, and you will never have to buy fuel, pay electricity, and even something as small like this little pen will become 90% cheaper. So what happens to your quality of life if everything becomes 90% cheaper pretty much overnight if this technology is released to the world? Well, and that's akin to what happened on 9/11, because it's some sort of cold fusion event, because even the stories of molten metal and the very warm rubble pile, all of that is complete and utter misdirection.
Huh. So do you think that so Ronald Reagan had this Star Wars initiative,
yeah.
SDI, right? Or I can't remember exactly what the
SDI, Strategic Defense
Initiative, right?
Yeah.
So the idea was to put satellites up, but these satellites would have active, I would assume, is directed energy weapons.
Yeah, to shoot down incoming ballistic missiles with nukes on them, yeah.
But just like everything, this is a dual purpose technology, right? Yeah. So it can be used to take down an incoming ballistic missile, or maybe it could also take down a building or two or five, or several. So I would very much implore people to look into Star Wars. Billions of dollars poured into it, and then it just never happens.
Went quiet.
Quote unquote, never happens. we know that.
In 1989, Ronald Reagan was really impressed and reported back to the world that we were successful in our first test. And then in the 90s, it just went chirp, 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 quiet. And even John Hutchinson worked on the Star Wars program as well. 2012, Jesse Ventura was doing a whole series on 9/11. So he started with the bombs and thermite, and then eventually on a book tour, he did his I think it was a book of 30 reports or secrets the CIA doesn't want to know or whatever. But he was on his book tour signing books, and then a gentleman came to him and then basically said, and he took this book and plopped it down in front of him and said, if you want to know what happened on 9/11, read this book. And he left his business card, an ex-retired NASA guy. And when he did his series, they called, the episode was called The Death Ray or something like that. And there was another gentleman who was also ex-NASA employee who was actually the guy who contacted Jesse, and he said, look, dude, I was working on the Star Wars program. We perfected it, and the way that it basically works is we can take out a whole city.
Fucking Christ.
And 2 days after, he basically posted a picture with Jesse Ventura on his own website. The guy died of a heart attack.
No way.
Yep. And also when he was talking to John Hutchinson, talking about the Star Wars program,
fires in Hawaii.
22 scientists working on the Star Wars program were also all taken out, or died mysteriously, or died suddenly, or freaky accidents or something like that.
Right.
And you can actually find documentaries on this anomaly of these scientists just dying off, who were all linked to the Star Wars program.
You know, it sounds, again, anyone in the UFO community will know exactly what I'm about to say. In the 40s and 50s, gravity, and all the popular mechanics and all the science magazines and newspapers at the time, they were like, we're about to crack gravity. We're about to crack it. It's the next thing. We're right on the cusp. Boom, goes silent.
Yeah.
Does it go silent because they failed? Or does it go silent because they succeeded and they took it underground and into programs like DARPA?
Yeah.
Most people in the UFO community will say that it went black, meaning it went into the black programs. So because I'm gonna have you back on. This is far too long a conversation to just comprise it. Let's get into a little bit of, so what happened in Pennsylvania and what happened at the Pentagon? Is the same technology used, or is this something different?
Well, Shanksville was a setup scene.
Okay.
There was no, if they found no jet fuel in ground samples. There was strange levitation effects that even affected the people in the town itself. When the people arrived there, even the mayor's brother arrived there around about in less than 5 minutes after the alleged plane crashed, and they said there was nothing resembling a plane there. There was a small little cottage very close by that had a garage door wrinkle up like a piece of confetti. If you look at the 2019 Ethiopian flight, I can't remember the name, the number, but just search Ethiopian Airlines 2019 crash site. The plane crashed in the similar way as we were told with Shanksville. And if you look at that debris field, it's insane. A plane doesn't get swallowed by the ground.
Yeah.
And the official story is that they found,
What the fuck is that?
That's just a hole in the fucking ground, man.
That's literally what it looks like. It's like they just Like, and then they blew up the ground, and then they scattered some metal across.
Yeah, and it's on official data that Flight 93 was still airborne well after the alleged crash time as well. All 4 planes.
Oof, my God. Oh, and then when it comes to the Pentagon, the official narrative is not only is this guy the worst of the pilots, he couldn't even fly a Cessna.
Yeah.
Right. And then he makes a fucking almost a 200-degree turn, right? Banks it, comes down perfectly aligned with the Pentagon, and then just so happens to hit the one section of the building where all the accounting is.
And also that loop is impossible structurally for a plane to be able to do that, because you're gonna hit 5 or 7 Gs and the plane will break up. It cannot fly at 500 feet pretty much parallel to the ground, like a few feet up. And if you still want to believe the government narrative, just go search the name Adam Eisenberg. He is a third infantry Alpha company. He spent 240 hours at the Pentagon clearing debris and all of that, and he said that there's nothing that resembled a plane there. And the reason why he can talk out of experience is because later on in his life he ended up in working for UPS, and it was a warehouse stocking Pratt and Whitney jet engine parts. So he's well acquainted with the parts and everything. And when COVID hit, something in him snapped, and he said, "Well, I haven't been believing that the plane crashed there for all these years, and I think I know what snapped." Yeah, and
I think I know what snapped in him. Is that it was another. I mean, you could argue that the pandemic was. Oh God, I'm gonna get the fucking video demonetized because I just said that. You could argue that the pandemic was the latest in a long line of control mechanisms.
But also, it was a curse and a blessing at the same time, because it woke up a hell of a lot of people, and now they're revisiting everything.
Right.
And a lot of people are slowly but surely making their way back to 9/11, especially in America with this trauma that is still hanging over people, and the way that you were conditioned. Because that's really evil what they did to you when you were a youngster, man.
Yeah, literally sitting there, and you were just told for not. And people, if anyone wants to like really do the math, picture every day for at least a year, 60 seconds, where you as a kid were told explicitly to remember 9/11 and for the people that died. So as a third grade kid, I'm doing that every day for a year. That's what if that's not a psychological operation? What is? What is? And with the Pentagon, people said that,
fast forward 24 years, and then university students, if you ask them about 9/11, they've got no fucking clue. They mentioned it was mentioned in passing to us twice in our whole school upbringing. So where the hell did the never forget go?
Yeah, it went to a certain people, and that's it.
Yeah.
Specific targeted audience. That's where it went. I have a niece, or I guess she's not technically my niece, but I was just at Thanksgiving with her, and I'm sitting next to her. We have like this traditional Uno game, and she's like 11, and I asked her, I was like, "Hey, did you learn about 9/11 in school?" And she said, "Yeah." I was like, "Can you tell me what happened?" And she said, "Some planes hit some buildings that I don't really know too much about it." And it just fucking, it set me back. I was at a loss for words, because it's not that fact that that she knows that 2 planes hit a couple towers. She doesn't know that the Pentagon was also hit. She doesn't know that in Shanksville, a plane allegedly crashed in a heroic story of passengers overcoming hijackers, right? That you think that that's something they would teach you, right? With the Pentagon, I mean, it is 2001, but that whole area is surveilled. And we don't have any footage of any plane going in, like clear footage. I think the only footage I've ever seen, you see like a white thing, kind of looks like a missile, to be honest. More resembles a missile, come through the frame and then goes out of the frame. And then you're kind of like, okay, then it hits the Pentagon. But you don't
sorry to burst your bubble on that. It's not a missile either.
I again, with what you're saying,
and those frames that were released to the public, they've proven that frame 33 and 34 was photoshopped.
Jesus fucking Christ.
So there's a big problem with that. And then if you go and look at the work of 9/11 planes research, Mark Condon out of the UK, there were also the seismic readings recorded for the Pentagon event. It wasn't a seismic event, it was an electrical disturbance. So there are a lot of things pointing to the fact that it was some sort of kinetic directed energy weapon event there as well.
That's what it looks like. I mean, you look at the fucking side of the pen. Look at that. Yeah. How is it so? I mean, that is fucking, that is laser.
There's no plane there, man.
That is laser precision. And it hits the one part where they hold all the paper accounting. So 2.3 trillion.
Man, it's just a coincidence, man. How can you be such a conspiracy theorist? Come on. It's just a coincidence, man.
Just a coincidence, right? It's blast. Could another not? If they did this, right? If this whole thing is staged to some degree, I guess my next question is, what will the next 9/11 look like?
Oh man, I don't know. I can just tell you, go back to the Oklahoma City bombing. That's also directed energy weapons, sorry to say. So just go look at that. The next 9/11, well, if more people, if there was a rallying around Dr. Morgan Reynolds and Dr. Wood in 2007, and people then could understand what happened on 9/11, then COVID-19 wouldn't have happened. And our world would have been a lot different. I think people are waking up more now because they can see the way the playbook plays out. We know October 7 was allowed to happen. There's more than enough stuff to have people see through that ruse now as well.
Right. The best intelligence agency, the intelligence agency that blew motherfuckers up with pagers couldn't stop that? What the fuck are you what are you trying to tell me?
But guys have come out and said that they were told to stand down and go do something else for the next 3 hours.
Dude, I don't know what's happening. But Israel, I'm getting really fucking fed up with, and this is coming from a person who, my partner is Jewish, right? There is a difference between people, the Jewish people and the Israeli government. Huge separation. But how is one of the smallest countries, wasn't even a fucking a nation state until the 40s, how do they have America by the nutsack? Why is it when they say jump, we say how high?
Yeah.
Why?
And why are they getting from 2020? Why have they been getting something like $15 or $20 billion a year for fuck knows how many years? And there's a new law that's come out, or that's been signed now, I think, that's going to be $20 or $30 billion a year for the next 20 years.
Yeah, and God forbid if you're on a college campus and you criticize Israel, boy, I come from the Ivy League area, in Boston. Yeah. If you're a college student, as you talk about Israel, dude, they'll stone you. All of a sudden, you'll see people revolt. I mean, reduce themselves back to the Stone Age. That's what it looks like. I mean, God forbid you question the big guy, And I think I mean, I wasn't a huge fan of Charlie Kirk. I'm not going to pretend that I was. I wasn't. I don't get that political. I'm starting to because of what happened to him. Just something. Is it just me or just since 9/11, something has not felt right. For most of my life, something's felt off. I don't know what it is. I don't know.
Well, there's a big awakening in your country and in the world in general. I just think I can't understand how it happened that your country got co-opted and controlled by another country. And there's been a lot of people who've been talking about it. You can find guys talking about AIPAC and how the Senate has been bought out as far back as the 1970s, just as you have the hearings that were held in the Senate where they were talking about the CIA infiltration in news media and all of that. And you still have people today that won't believe it. For me, as a South African, looking at what's going on in America right now, it is to me the best circus to watch. I don't need to watch. Well, I don't need to watch soapies or anything like that. I just need to watch what's going on in your
fair enough
in your politics and everything. It's crazy. At least you seem to be an American that can define what a woman is.
Yes,
but there's still a lot of people that can't do that, man. It's weird to see how even look, if somebody comes into your country illegally, it's illegal. Why would people have an issue with somebody being deported who didn't follow the stringent ways of getting into your country? Even here in South Africa, we've got a major problem with that, but we've got a failed state. That's our country has been in decline for over 30 years. So I can understand the problems that we've got, but you guys are supposed to be first world. You guys are supposed to be the superpower of top of the pile, but it also seems like you guys have some of the most stupid people in government, and never mind just people in the streets, because you can walk down and ask them who the Kardashian married or what they wore to which gala event or whatever, but ask them something about where Papua New Guinea is, and they won't be able to answer a question like that. And it's a fact that your educational system is just dumbing down people like you can't believe. And hopefully you guys can do something about this, because if you guys are going to be following the same timeline as we did here in South Africa for the last 30 years, yours is just ramped up a lot faster. And you guys need to really, really wake up. Otherwise, you're going to be even worse off than Europe is at the moment.
Do you? This is going to. We'll wrap up in a minute because I gotta. I'll have to have you back on for a part 2. This is like, I'm going to keep this series open. So like open to the point where I'm revisiting at least once a month and trying to get as many people on the ground that were there, first responders, people like,
I would love to speak to them as well.
Yeah. I mean, I will, if there's something I'm good at, it's getting people that I have no business talking to talk to me.
Okay. That's cool.
Yeah. So
dude, then please see if you can speak to go and make a list of the gentlemen the first responders who survived the North Tower.
Okay.
Disintegration, Mickey Cross and the rest of his guys, because that's the one thing that I would love to do, is get on a plane, fly over to America and do a little documentary series and go interview those guys and have them sit down and watch the presentation by Dr. Julie Wood and see what their responses would be.
Well, what's nice is I can fly to New York in literally 30 minutes. I can drive. I could drive there and drive back all in one day.
Jeez.
Right?
Okay.
It's nice for me because New York's that close, but yeah, I would love to do something larger and really get to the heart of some of these questions, because something doesn't feel right. And I think anyone who doesn't look at 9/11 the day and just from just the evidence of the things that changed on our daily lives
Worldwide,
people, I don't think people understand the ramifications of what happened that day are still being felt today.
yeah.
If it's not a continued direct operation of
It's set up where we are now.
Yeah.
If they didn't get away with it that easily, because that's the thing. If people woke up that day and said, "No, all of this that we see here is bullshit,"
this.
yeah.
If that day they were like, "Wait a second, let's take a fucking step back. Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure this is what happened?" And they didn't just march to war and call for someone's head. Literally calling for Osama bin Laden's head. People
within 45 seconds. Within 45 seconds.
My mother, sweetest woman ever. When he was killed that day in that operation, people were in the streets partying. What the fuck was that? What was that? That's not a civilized culture.
Mm-hmm.
They paraded that kill around, and then they dropped him in the middle of the ocean, right? No one knows why. Well, they say it's so they can't build a mass grave and in remembrance of him. But something doesn't feel right. I accept that he was a terrorist. I accept that terrorism exists. I accept all of these things. But I'm also not quick to say that, given who we are, that something like this, such a absolutely catastrophic intelligence failure, such a thing could ever happen in a world where we call ourselves the dominant superpower. How could people that lived in mud huts do something that sophisticated?
Correct.
It doesn't add up. It doesn't add up.
It's theater. You guys were sold a story because there's got to be a story. There's got to be a reason why the buildings collapsed because of a plane. But if you go do your research on what a plane can and cannot do, then you see that falls. They had to get rid of. They had to get rid of the.
I know why
the finance aspect and a military installation.
But if you were
needed
a hijacker,
to be hit. No, but a military installation needed to be hit to make it an act of war.
Right.
Otherwise, it would have only been a terrorist attack.
If it was
it's not reason to go to war.
If it was a terrorist, if I was a terrorist hijacker and I'm flying into DC, I'd hit the fucking White House. Why would you hit the Pentagon?
Yeah.
Why not hit the White House where the president lives? It's the most fucking famous building in the world. Why would you not hit that? If you were a hijacker who could precisely target the Pentagon's accounting division, why not hit the White House?
Yeah, but
I just
in an approach that most pilots try to do in simulators, and they can't even manage that because Jesse Ventura did an episode on the Pentagon itself, and one of his guys who were on his team was able to fly a Cessna. He did some of that, and then they put him in a flight simulator with a pilot, and he tried the same approach, and he couldn't manage it. And that pilot also stated again, well, if you're flying that low at 500 miles an hour, it won't be able to do that because the wings and stuff would have separated from the plane a long time ago. Right. All that information has been put out in mainstream media, even though it was a conspiracy type series. But that's as far back as 2012, and you still have people trying to make the argument for a real plane, and then you've got army soldiers who were part of the cleanup stating, sorry guys, but it's bullshit, and the 9/11 truth movement shuns them. Go listen to the interviews. You can find a bunch of the interviews of Adam Eisenberg, and where he basically talks to you about his interactions with people like Richard Gage, Greg Jenkins, all of these guys, David Chandler, the so-called 9/11 truther celebrities that you guys have. And he's got some serious war stories to tell. And you should I'll send you his email address so that you can reach out to him as well.
Yeah. So where can people find you and continue to look at your work? You've compiled some of the, next time we'll have you on, maybe I'll just let you do the presentation. Because I kind of want to hear it start to finish. So we'll have to set that up. I want to hear, maybe I'll do that next. Where can people find you and continue to learn about this?
Well, I'm on Substack. I've got a whole bunch of articles there that I've been writing since 2023. That's at 9/11 Revision. So substack.com/at 9/11 Revision. Then on X, I'm really interactive there at 9/11 Revisited. And then you can also find me on Rumble. I've got a hell of a lot of content there, is revisiting 9/11. I'm on YouTube, but YouTube doesn't like me. I'm on my 5th channel
Not gonna like me anyway.
3 years. So find me on Substack, Rumble, and X. I do have a Telegram channel that I link in my in the bottom of my Substack articles as well, that I set up as a library where it's really easy to download the content in Telegram, and
nice.
It's a group with a bunch of subgroups as well. So if you're on your cell phone, you're not going to easily see the subgroups, but go onto your laptop and you'll see all the subgroups, and just download the stuff there. It's set up as a learning hub, and just drop a comment if you've got questions. And anybody who wants to have a discussion, reach out to me. That's sometimes the best way to go through all of this, because a lot of people have got preconceived ideas. Strangely enough, about 2 weeks ago, a gentleman who's a lifelong New Yorker still believed in the radio-controlled planes and controlled demolition and all of that. And he came into a friend of mine's Telegram asking a bunch of questions. He ended up private messaging me. I told him, just go watch 9/11 Alchemy Facing Reality and tell me what you think. And then let's schedule a Zoom call. And after watching that documentary and looking at the work of Dr. Judy Wood and Dr. Morgan Reynolds, he's completely on the page now where he can realize that Project Bluebeam was in play on 9/11, and an exotic weapon. Yeah, and exotic weaponry was used. Dude, in 2015, Stephen Greer was asked direct question about this, and he sidestepped it like you can't believe.
Of course he did.
And how the hell can all these guys in the UFO field be scurrying around this? You guys have all been waiting for Project Bluebeam to happen, and it's already happened.
Have you seen the guy that went on Danny Jones and showed not and this is about Greer. He showed this like article and evidence that brought Greer into like he got married. Yeah. I didn't want to say it out loud. Thank you for saying it. But Greer got married, and that he never really.
And he's
Yeah. So you know what I'm talking about. Yes. Okay.
I saw that episode, yeah.
So that's why I think he sidestepped it. He talks about all the shit that's needed. He talks about all the ingredients. He just doesn't want to put them together to bake that 9/11 cake, if you know what I'm saying.
I've got a specific article where I take statements of Greer, statements of Dr. Wood, and all of that. It's basically go onto my Substack, into my archive, and just type in UFO, and you'll find that article. And I break it down, showing how disingenuous this arsehole is, because he's running a honeypot.
Yeah.
He's running. So many guys in the UFO field know this. There's this other. It's a guy with a beard. He's ex Navy SEAL, and an older guy. I can't remember the names. And they had a young guy who was also talking about directed energy weapons recently, and the guys are all talking around this, but none of them want to connect it to 9/11. No. Why? What are they so scared of?
I know. I think I know what they're scared of. I think I know. But
they're going to be heart attacked.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is it seems the DoD is approved up to a certain degree, right? They even call them whistleblowers. They're not fucking whistleblowers. No. They're PR agents fucking giving you a controlled disclosure story, right? Yeah. Like, there's no real UFO whistleblower right now.
They are perception managers.
Right. And it's concerning to me. It is concerning to me that, because no one wants to they think, and this is my own opinion about the UFO community, they don't want to admit that the same people that are controlling like the Epsteins and the Diddies and the 9/11 stuff, they don't want to admit that the same people that are doing that are the same people that are retrieving these craft and then covering it up and then using said technology to enrich themselves. This idea of the deep state. They don't want to say that Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were collecting just Nordic, like Swedish men were Ghislaine Maxwell. That's all she had it as her assistants, and their hair would go missing. And like when you take a shower, your hair goes in the drain. There's guys that would come home and the hair would be missing from the sink. And why was Epstein so connected into the idea of free energy? Why was he so involved in that research? Why was he so curiously sparked by all of that? Why was he blackmailing the most important people? Right? The Diddies of the world, they're in every fucking industry. Yeah. And then they control the world that way. Yeah. I mean, the evidence is all right there. Just no one wants to connect it. But everyone wants to get paid.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
And the thing is people don't know that there are three camps of truth awareness. The first camp is the government narrative. Second one is the official counter narrative that's completely filled with truth seekers, truth tellers, COINTELPRO agents, and all of that. And that's where everybody gets stuck. And you think, okay, fine, because this guy is talking the right talk, everything against the government or whatever, they don't realize that this guy is an agent, and they don't go deeper so that they can find Camp 3 where the real truth is. And that's where you get censored, deplatformed, vilified, made fun of, and everything. And it's very difficult getting to that third camp. And because it's such a lonely place, people then easily fall back into Camp 2, and it's a struggle. Yeah.
I'll tell you this, it pays more to be in Camp 2 than it does to be in Camp 3, right? If you want to be able to speak at conferences and get those fees from writing the books and documentaries, then people find Camp 2 and they get real comfy, baby, right? Because life at the top is fun, especially when you're looking down. But thank you so much for doing this. We'll definitely have you back on. For everyone watching in the current, thank you so much. For most of you that'll probably listen back, make sure to like, share, subscribe. And if you're on one of the great podcast platforms where we are ranked, for some reason, the YouTube videos, we've been kind of fucked over on that side. In the top 200 on audio, but can't touch on YouTube. I don't know what's going on. Trying to fix it. So if more people share the actual channel, I would really appreciate that. And you can also join monetarily. Pay whatever you want. Everyone gets the same shit. And we'll see you next time.
Cool.
What was I gonna say? I was gonna say a catchy phrase at the end. I had it, but I lost it. So I'll say it next time. All right. Yeah, we'll definitely have you back.